Hi, my name is Grace Shalom Hopkins and welcome to another episode of Spin Weekly. Today, another beginner spinner video. We are talking about how to spin roving. So, if you've seen my how to spin bat video, which may or may not be up at the time this goes up, but it's coming. I've already filmed it, so this time is wibbly wobbly. Like, it's just time. Anyway, you've already, or you will, hear how I don't like to be told what to do. I don't like to be told what to do. So I'm not going to tell you this is how you spin roving and only give you one option, because that's dumb. There's lots of options. So in this video we're going to talk about my favorites. Now these are umbrella options. There are so many ways you can implement this in your spinning. These are only a few of them. So I will go in more depth in the voiceover. So let's just roll right into that. So with this pink guy, it's just end to end. I didn't do anything. I just broke it off from the main piece and pretended it's its own entity. So this is like you got a comb top in the mail or roving from a mill and you just sat down at your wheel and started spinning from it. There are a few different ways you can do this. You can do it across the top where you try and equally draft from each section. So you're working your way across the top of the piece of fiber. So across the grain is how I like to call that. But I find that's really difficult to do, especially with a blend. So even for experienced spinners, it's kind of difficult because there's natural fault lines in the fiber that you can kind of fall into a ditch and have to break off and start again. And it just feels very starty-stoppy. So if you want to do that, I recommend choosing your top carefully and looking for one that doesn't have big fault lines. You can see how mine kind of naturally divides into three. You also may want to avoid blends because the longer fibers may throw you off. But if you're not going for exact precision, you can just kind of follow and keep an eye on where you're at in general and try not to just spin all the way down one leg. If it's a multicolored, this is a semi-solid, but if it's a multicolored fiber, you can just keep an eye on where you are in the colors and try and spin all of color A before you move to color B. Again, there is a windstorm. I live in Kansas in a house that was constructed in the 1800s. It is loud in here. So if you hear background noise, it is the loud house. So anyway, this is pretty straightforward. The plying, again, I'm just two-plying it because I am going to swatch these in How to Spin Roving Part 2 so you can really compare the different preps, the different color organization methods. Same plying, and it's pretty to watch plying, especially if you are a Patreon with the music-only version. Once it gets to a single, any technique to ply it. Now we're on to splitting it with the grain. So I am finding those natural fault lines that we talked about before and splitting it down. So we're going with the grain, and you can do this once or twice or however many you want. This is a technique that we use for fractaling. If you are interested in fractal, I have a fractal video linked down below. So with this particular one, I'm going to do something interesting. I have not pre-drafted this first guy. I'm spinning him from the blue side down to the purple side, and then I am going to attach part number 2, purple side to blue side. So it will go blue, purple, purple, blue to get kind of a mirrored effect. Because when I split this way, if it's a mirror effect kind of situation, I don't like to have a repeat, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and that's personal color preference. But if you're doing stripping, you probably should kind of have a noodle on where you want the colors to fall. And if you're going to two-ply, it's especially handy because you could split a piece of comb top in half and spin one on one bobbin and one on the other bobbin and ply them together, or connect them in the mirror image like I mentioned and center pole ball them, and then you can have roughly mirrored images. So I think this is probably my most used technique because it can be applied in so many different ways. If you've read my book Roving, which I have links down below to that as well, you will see how many different ways you can manipulate the color placement of fiber by just dividing it in unique ways. So if you've been on this channel, you know how much I love this one. So now we're gonna look at the same piece of fiber, but I'm going to pre-draft it a little bit, which is going to slightly change the way the colors present. So this one will act as ply number 2. So again, I've spun it like a mirror, blue, purple, purple, blue. And then when I ply it back to itself, it will be pre-drafted on one side and not pre-drafted on the other side. So it's not a good test of how they look when I make the swatch, obviously, because they're not two individuals. But I do think it makes a pretty pattern, and it gave me a chance to talk about some really low effort, cool ways you can transform a otherwise pretty standard spin into something a little bit unexpected. Just pre-drafting one ply gets the job done. So here I'm playing off of 2 bobbins, kind of a bonus tutorial on 2 plying from 2 bobbins. It's the same as any other type of flying. You connect the 2 with the leader thread, and you have your 2 bobbins on your Lazy Kate. In this case, they are built into my Queen Bee spinning wheel, and you just ply them together. I like to hold them with my backhand, one ply on one finger and the other ply on a different finger to kind of keep them from getting knotted, and then use my front hand to just kind of guide them together. I don't really stress about the angle that they're met as long as it's pretty consistent. If you hold one of the plies at a 90-degree angle, you'll get bubbling, which is a cool effect if it's what you're going for, but I usually don't go for bubbling. I find it's kind of a pain to knit with. I also don't really like the way it feels running through my fingers if it's just 2 of the same kinds. Unless I'm doing something airy like a mohair, I don't love bubbling. But anyhow, that's not the topic of this video. But I did want to highlight plying off of 2 bobbins because you don't see me do that very often, and a lot of people prefer to ply this way instead of my standard, which is a center pole ball. So here you can see how the wheel is doing this. There are lots of different Lazy Kate setups. You can get external ones. You can put 1 bobbin in a laundry basket on either side of your wheel. However it works for you. You can even wind them into 2 balls on either side of the wheel. So there's my TED Talk on 2 plying. So the next technique we have here is the chunking method. So now you're doing pretty much exactly the same thing as we did in the last method, but you're going across the grain. So you have a really cool opportunity here to reorder the colors of your roving. So if you have a multicolored roving, you could turn it into a gradient. You could change the sequence of the colors. You could disrupt the transition between colors, which was what I'm doing here. So many different possibilities. Again, this is the whole premise of my book Roving, which is linked down below. So if you're curious, look at that. I also have lots of other videos where I make weird and wacky choices with how I divide fiber. So these ones, you can spin them pre-drafted or not pre-drafted. You can spin them across the top. You can really spin them however you want, but again, it depends on how you want to control the color as to how you might want to do that. My general default is the same as the end-to-end method, where I do my best to keep it fairly color to color, working across, so you can see how I'm working through, but I'm not really stressing about it too much. In this spin, I just wanted to demonstrate the mechanics of the thing because I have so many other videos that talk about the different construction of the colorway. I was distracted because that's a total crotch shot of me in those gray pants. It was weird. They're kind of big on me, so I felt like that was a strange angle. I will note that for future endeavors. So anyhow, here we're plying, and I'm using my standardized center pole ball method to ply, but again, you could do from 2 bobbins. Now this is unique, and when we see part 2, you'll see the squatches. So that particular piece of fiber that I divided into chunks was a gradient from a yellow to a pink. And because I'm spinning them end to end from a center pole ball, it's going to be barber pulled back on itself. So that's a unique twist. So now we're going to talk about faux lags, which are faux rolags. It's kind of a twist on spinning from the fold. It's like if spinning from the fold and spinning a bat had a baby, it would be a faux lag. I personally think these are obnoxious to deal with, but I know they're pretty popular, so I added them in because, you know, you might really enjoy them. They're fun to make, I'll give you that. So there we go, that's how you make them. You pre-draft the fiber and then you just roll it up on your table fairly loosely with the goal of keeping the fibers aligned with themselves. And to spin them, you spin it like you would any other rolag. You join it to either your leader thread, or in this case, the existing yarn, and then you just draft off the top. I do think that this is a good alternative to spinning from the fold if people are really nervous about that. It doesn't make a true woolen yarn, but true woolen is a very specific kind of a beast. However, it does create a bit of a tube of fiber, but as you can see in the spin, it mostly just pulls out from the faux lag in kind of a clump of top, and so you don't get a lot of that wind tube action. But I do think it allows you to be unpredictable with your colors. So if you're having trouble letting the fiber spirits take control of your colors and not stressing out about them, this can be a really fun technique to kind of ease into it. You can get a piece of fiber that has a really subtle multicolor aspect to it, not tonal, but multicolored, so you can you know, live a little bit on the wild side, and then roll it into faux lags and see how it comes out of the faux lag onto the wheel. Now, unfortunately, the colors that I chose are fairly semi-solid because I wanted to talk more about, you know, the mechanics and not get distracted by the specific colors, because a lot of people want to mirror or mimic a project that they see online, and I specifically try to avoid making easy to mimic projects. I want you to use my techniques and my perspectives with your own vision and heart. I don't want to be a crutch, I want to be an enabler, you know? So, again, I am spinning this from a center pole ball, so the color work is going to be applied back on itself, where if you split each of those in half, you could do it that way. So each individual rolag you could split in half, or you could split the roving across the middle. You could split it with the grain down the middle and do 2 sets of rolags that way. Again, the possibilities are endless. Next, we are going to talk about the hand drafted, carded, I don't know what to call this, like faux carding. See, that was super quick. This is 2 times the actual speed, but it was still very quick to pull these out. Now this makes a very soft semi-solid. So this piece of fiber that I'm working for has fairly defined patches of blue and lime green. But as I'm pulling from them, those pieces of fiber are blending together, especially because I'm doing a little bit of reordering. I'm not working crazy hard, but I am reordering them a little bit, so that way they get a more watercolor semi-solid situation. So if you have a piece of fiber that is maybe too harsh for you, you can get a semi-solid using this method. Be careful though, you don't want to muddy the fibers, so if you have two fibers that will look gross if they're drafted together, keep that in mind. It works well with like colors. Or you can do the chunking method, reorder your colors, and then come back to do this hand carding, like hand pulling method. So again, I keep saying again, I'm kind of repeating myself, but the whole point of this video was to really shine a massive spotlight on the fact that these techniques are so simple and so straightforward once you have the basics of spinning down, that you can come up with endless variations very easily just by looking at the fiber in a unique and unexpected way. And layering these different techniques, lots of cool things can happen here. One of the ways I like to use this particular technique is if you split the fiber in half with the grain and then do this hand pulling thing to one half, but leave the other half intact. So you spin one end to end and the other half in this tufted method. It needs a better name. If you have a good name, leave it in the comment section down below. Because if you say hand carded, people think of hand cards. And pre-drafting, people think of pre-drafting. This is just like fluffing. It's not picking, that's something else too. Anyway, you can take those two pieces of fiber and you can spin them together to do a unique kind of edgy on one side, watercolor on the other type of yarn. Similar to what we did with our split down the grain method, where I did pre-drafting versus not pre-drafting. That's a much more subtle version of this technique that I'm talking about. As I'm recording this voiceover, I feel like I'm imparting a huge amount of information in a very short period of time. So I hope that I don't overwhelm you or confuse you, but just take away from this that experimentation is safe. There are very few things you can do to ruin good fiber when you are prepping it with the health of the fiber in mind. So obviously you can cut it up, you can burn it, you can felt it, you can like spill your tea on it. That's something that can happen. But if you're taking good care of the structure of the fiber itself, it's hard to ruin it and make it unspinnable or ugly, just because there's so many different techniques available to you. So that's my hope that you will take away from this video, that your fiber is welcoming to you, it's going to be your friend in this process, and you're safe to experiment. Alright, so I hope you learned something and are going to go take action with your shiny new optional skills. And if you have any thoughts, feelings, comments, suggestions, put them in the comment section down below and I will read them. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you want to find out more about the wheel that I spun on, which is a Queen Bee by Spinolution, you can follow the links down below. You guys have probably heard me wax poetic about these. The wheel that I didn't want to like, that I do like, actually the wheel company. But this is my favorite wheel company, and I have both the Polywog and the Queen Bee, and I think they're great, and I would own all of them if I had more space and also unlimited funds. But I would love to talk to you about spinning wheels if you're in the market for a new one. Down below. Links, it's labeled Queen Bee Spinolution Wheel. Also down below is the link to my Patreon. You guys probably are aware that Patreon patrons support a huge portion of my income, which allows me to pay my bills and make lots of these cool videos for you. So if you want to do that, hit the link down below. This week I have the music vibes version of this video. There's no intro or outro, it's just all sweet, sweet fibery goodness set to music. None of my quirky blathering on. So if you would like that or just like to support the channel, you know where to go. And until next time, bye!